Hey everyone, hope you're well. I've been thinking about one particular character who, in my opinion, has been mistreated by the writer, well, any writer who writes about this character so much that if this person was a real person and they went through what this character has gone through, and the character in question being the Scarlet Witch, if the Scarlet Witch was a real person, I think that she would either be dead by suicide or in psychotherapy for the rest of her life because the way she's written, it's crazy. It's crazy. She is like a poster child for depravity and sort of like just really weird, out of sync Twilight Zone relationships. Look, her relationship with the Vision, some might think that it's like the greatest love story since Romeo and Juliet. And if you do, all right, fine, you're entitled to your opinion. That's okay. But here's the question: out of 8 billion people in the world, of whom perhaps say 4 billion are men, why do writers choose to thrust Wanda into the arms of a soulless machine? And yes, one can argue that the Vision is a very complicated, sophisticated android, capable of sentient thought and perhaps feelings, or maybe it's a machine that thinks that it can feel when it doesn't really feel anything at all. It's difficult to tell, right? Because the Vision is not a man. The Vision is an it is a machine. And yet, Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, happens to find solace and peace in the arms of a man made construct, a, a walking mannequin. It's an insane idea. Um, I mean, to make the point more explicit, I suppose you can argue that the relationship, the intimate relationship that they have within the boundaries of marriage, because they are married, of course, the way in which uh, the Vision would satisfy Wanda, her sexual needs, it basically, because of his origins, it basically makes him a very glorified robotic sex doll. And I don't like saying that. It's a very crude way of describing a character, but I think really that's what it is. I think that's the best way to describe this character, at least from a relationship perspective. Yes, he has the superhero element. I understand that, but if you're putting him into a relationship perspective, he's not a person with a flesh and blood, a soul, a mind, etc., etc. It just I keep saying it just isn't a human being. It just is not a man. And so it cannot provide the same things that a man can. Whatever it provides to Wanda is a perverse imitation, a weird sort of broken reflection of what it is to be in a real relationship, and that is a great tragedy. It's the ultimate lie. It's like basically buying one of those inflatable, or I don't know, one of those like lifelike dolls, or even a mannequin, and putting it into your home and coming back every single day and like, hey, hi honey, I'm home, and then sitting down with it next to you watching TV. It's it's tragic. It's very tragic, and yet this is what's being portrayed in the comic books. But if you think that this is the extent of Wanda's relationship faux pas, you would be very much mistaken. The things that I have read beyond her relationship with the Vision, the other relationships in which she's been involved, whether it's in the standard Marvel universe or perhaps an extension of the Marvel universe, whatever it may be, this character really has been steamrolled. It's bordering on sort of I don't know, sexual exploitation of a female character. It really is. Why the writers do this, I don't know, but there are worse examples, and that's something that I'll be looking at today. One of the most messed up stories that I have read regarding Wanda, and again, let's take the Vision out of it for a second. Wanda, is in the Ultimates series of Marvel Comics, which basically kind of re-envision, characters like Spider-Man and the Avengers and whatnot. And In issue number 3 of the Ultimates, which is written by Jeff Loeb and drawn by Joe Madureira, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Anyway, let's concentrate on the writer for a second, Jeff Loeb. He's basically presented Wanda as this hyper-sexualized, bikini-wearing harlot who basically is chastised in a way by Captain America, who in the who basically says, "Hey Wanda, we have to set an example to the young people out there. Maybe you should wear a little more to cover yourself up because basically you want to present yourself as a superhero, not a stripper." And this offends her brother Pietro, Quicksilver, and you know Steve Rogers is taken aback with the ferocity with which Quicksilver is defending his sister. But he thinks, all right, she's his sister, so I can understand what's going on. However, there's more to it than meets the eye. So the Wasp basically explains to Captain America that they that Wanda and Pietro love each other, and Steve Rogers, the captain, says, well, of course they're brother and sister. But then the Wasp makes it very clear that no, they are basically in love with each other. They are lovers basically, and, and Steve has a very hard time trying to digest this because they're brother and sister. And there you have it in the pages of Marvel's The Ultimate, issue 3. You have a bona fide, blow up in your face, incestuous relationship. And I don't understand why Jeff Loeb has done this. I don't know how it benefits the story in any positive way, any constructive way at all. I don't see how it benefits the story at all, really. Apart from, scandal for scandal's sake, right? It's just a scandal. It'll perhaps sell more comic books. But here's the thing, guys: scandal for scandal's sake, in my opinion, doesn't a great comic make, right? That you need other things than just showing a lot of skin and then making it very clear that two characters who shouldn't be that close are in fact closer than that close. It's horrible writing. And I don't outright say that often about writers and their writing. I don't make comments which are so, derogatory. But in my opinion, this is just very, very bad writing. I don't know why he's done this. And the other thing which offends me a little is that if you think about it, there are going to be young children who are potentially picking up this comic book and reading it because, comic books are picked up by all age groups. There's no warning sign on them saying, 18 only. Oh, some comic books might have that, but the Ultimates, as far as I'm aware, doesn't have that. So a kid picks up a book, and it's one thing to have a passing comment like, "Oh, they're really close," or just like having a particular innuendo within the pages that will pass over the heads of most children. That is still possible. That's still okay. But to make it very clear in the panels, in the dialogue, that they are in fact too close, well, what are you exposing children to? I mean, yes, as they get older, they will find out about things, about the various depravities and corruptions in the world. You just find these things out anyway in news, other friends. Life will teach you these things. But why do you need to advertise this or even advocate to an extent to children? And I use the word advocate very carefully here because the Wasp says that your 1944 mind won't comprehend. What are you trying to say? That what? The idea of the sanctity of relationships, particular relationships, is what? Is old-fashioned? Oh, we're in the modern age. Anything goes. You can do anything, man. You can love whoever you want. Well, sure, I understand, but we're talking about family members. What's next? You're a son and you're in love with your dad. I mean, good God, where does this stop? Where does this stop? Why do I get the feeling that somewhere down the road we're going to have a comic book where the panels will depict Wolverine picking up a sheep from his, from his back in one panel, and then the next panel will have a close up of Wolverine's face, all screwed up, ecstasy dripping from his eyes, and the sheep like screaming in agony. And in your mind, you're thinking he's either poked this sheep with his claws or he's poked the sheep with something else. I mean, why do I get the feeling this is going to happen where anything goes? Because from these panels, it looks like that's where we're heading. And, I don't think that's a good thing. Anyway, you think that this is it, right? This is as bad as it gets. Oh no, it gets even more specifically explicit. A Wolverine follows Pietro because he's hunting him, basically, on the orders of his father Magneto, who wants Quicksilver dead because he hates Quicksilver. Everyone hates everyone in the Ultimates universe. Anyway, well, no, not everyone. I mean, Wanda and Pietro clearly don't hate each other. They love each other a bit too much. Anyhow, Wolverine basically testifies to the fact that he saw the brother and sister couple, getting it on. And how much more explicit do you have to be? It's straight from the horse's mouth that something happened which shouldn't have happened, and God knows how many times it's happened. So there it is, the continuation of the downfall of the character of the Scarlet Witch. She dresses like a hooker, and she gets up to sexual shenanigans, which no one really should. And her brother and her clearly have a lot of psychological damage from their father, and the loss of their mother. And it's, oh my God, there is so much. This is why I say that if these were real characters, they would either be dead by now through suicide, or they genuinely would be locked up. Or if not locked up, they would be in, I don't know, psychotherapy for the rest of their lives, because this is painful stuff. It's painful stuff to read, but if anyone actually went through this in real life, I mean, God. And the funny thing is, I say funny, that is the wrong word. What's more depressing about this tale is that later on, when Wanda dies, in the tale, the grief that is felt by Pietro is not grief of the loss of your sibling, of your sister. It's the grief of the loss of your lover. And it's just like, what? For goodness sakes, is there no end? Is there no end to this craziness? But I mean, clearly not. So, I mean, I'm laughing, but this is laughter of fear and desperation. Make of it what you will. If you are still with me by this stage and your brain hasn't exploded whilst traveling through the sewage that we have just skipped through, then let me give you one more for dessert. Issue 56 of the West Coast Avengers, written and drawn by John Byrne, who happens to be one of my favorite artists back in the day, and I genuinely admire his work a lot. He gave us this story about Wanda, who in this issue, she's gone bonkers. She's gone mad because she's realized that her kids were fragments of her imagination dispersed by Mephisto, which thereafter, puts her into this sort of complete, mad psycho mode. And she starts taking aggressive action towards her own teammates, and basically just traps them using her hex power, and decides to go after, Wonder Man, and basically says, listen, Wendy, I know you like me and I like you, and how about I show you some love and attention? And he's like, whoa, what are you doing, girl? And she's like, no, let it happen. It's going to be good. And then she starts scratching his chest, and just goes all the way down. And, in my innocent mind back then, I thought that she was scratching his stomach and then possibly his twiddly bits, because, he screams out, no, right? That's the look of someone, to me, with Wanda's head in the picture, and Simon looking up and saying, "Ah, no," that's the look of pain. That's the look of pain. That's what I thought it was. Where did her hand go down to, really? What does she scratch? So anyway, let's keep that image in mind, shall we? And that caption, no. And let's look at something else. These captions, which I have retrieved from the internet, purports to show the pre-approved work that was going to go into the Avengers West Coast issue 56, but of course, uh, what we actually what we actually ended up having in the comic book was a little bit different. You will note that in the bottom panel, where you see Wonder Man's face, the Scarlet Witch's head is missing, right? So it's present in the actual issue 56, but in these sketches, the head is missing. So on the top, you've got Wanda scratching the chest, with glee, and obviously that her intention is to cause pain. However, next panel, where's her head? That clearly implies or shows that she has kneeled down in front of Simon, who's obviously taking her name. Wanda. He's looking down, and that's not the look of pain, guys. That's the look of like something else. So let's put two and two together, shall we? Wanda's decided to go down. I mean, go down, and Simon doesn't look like he's in much pain. What is happening? And from certain things that I have read, again, this is on the internet, so whether this is completely correct or not, apparently it was Mr. Burns' intention to suggest that there was something being done to Simon that he might have possibly enjoyed. Um, yeah. So, involving Wanda's head. I'll say no more. I'll say no more. Except that, please, future writers, have some pity on this character that is the Scarlet Witch. I mean, you might as well change her name at this stage from the Scarlet Witch to the Scarlet Harlot. You've turned her into like a literal hooker. You have turned this character into a lady of ill repute, and it's really damning. It's a damning indictment as to where we are heading as a society, where comic books are being used to convey such torrid tales of it's a form of sexual exploitation of women superhero characters. Surely this has to stop. Anyhow, yeah, I get a little bit worked up and emotional about these things because I grew up reading comic books. I love comic books, I really do, and I I don't know why these things, why this wonderful medium of entertainment, or why even these particular panels are being passed off as entertainment when actually, far from being entertainment, they are an indictment on our society's expectations of entertainment. This is what we enjoy. Who enjoys this? Who enjoys stuff like this? I mean, forget the John Byrne panel, which is kind of tame compared to what we just reviewed in relation to the Ultimates. Who enjoys reading about the weird the weird relationships and exploitation of the Scarlet Witch? Who enjoys? How is this entertainment? I don't think it is, and I don't think it should be perceived as such. But anyway, that's just my opinion, and who knows? Maybe in this day and age, I would be considered a relic. Maybe I'm just completely wrong. Anyway, look, I still hold steadfast to my views, and I think I've rambled long enough, and I've taken up too much of your time. But thank you for joining me, guys. I really appreciate it. Listen, like and subscribe if you will. And to anyone who's listened, I appreciate your time genuinely. Thank you very much. I hope to catch you in the next one.